G'day, welcome back to a special edition of It's a Football Thing. I'm your host, RJ, the Balanced Blue, joined by a very special guest, a very well-known face and voice, a proud Liverpool fan, Grizz Khan. Thank you for joining us this day. And I just want to say up front, it's a real privilege to be able to have you on the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay from a personal point of view, but from a footballing, proud Liverpool point of view, not so well. And it's absolutely an honor. No problem at all, my friend. Thank you very much for asking me on.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I suppose up front, the one thing our teams have in common at the moment is just how unfamiliar and how disappointed both of our teams have been going this season. And it's no surprise we've been experiencing a lot of challenges, both internal and externally, distracting both of our clubs. But I just want to give the audience a bit of an insight into perspective into the work you do, Grizz, and just a little bit of history about when you started supporting Liverpool and your affinity with the club.
Oh, wow. We're going way back if you're going to ask about that. Yeah, look, I'm a very old school Liverpool fan. You're talking from 85, 86, 1985, 1986. So the motivation and the inspiration behind me when I really got into Liverpool was the John Barnes signing, the John Barnes era. Growing up as a kid, I was literally, I ain't got no problems giving my age away. I was literally 11, 12 years old. And yeah, John Barnes was sort of the hero growing up. And when he joined Liverpool, you got to remember there wasn't so many ethnics or even black players, around. And he kind of was like the representative of us, being a non-white, I should say. And so we noticed them more back in that time. And yeah, that's where the love affair started with the Reds. So I've seen pretty much the thick, the thin, a little bit of thick recently, and now a little bit of thin again. So yeah, you can say I've been through the mill with this team, and it looks like they're gonna make me go through the mill again.
Through thick and thin, as they say. And just for your benefit, Grizz, because I know we're newly established friends, I was very honoured and humbled to have on King Canners, Paul Cannavale, on for a chat last year, and it was a really humbling, somewhat shocking and fascinating insight into sort of the upbringing he had and the experiences he endured as a Chelsea player. And he's the face of the club, and I think it's fair to say there's a long way to go, but he was someone that I was really honoured to have on the show. But just to sort of fast forward to today's times, Grizz, and I'm just looking at the stat sheet in front of me, and I'm looking at Chelsea and Liverpool, traditional rivals who've been on the upper echelon of the Premier League over the last decade or so. But I look at the current ladder. Liverpool 9th, Chelsea 10th. Liverpool have played 18 games, Chelsea 19. Both have won 8. Both have drawn 4. Liverpool have lost 6. Chelsea lost 7. Liverpool have scored 34 and conceded 25 with a goal difference of 9, whereas Chelsea have scored 22 and conceded 21. Very disappointing numbers for both clubs. I know Mo Salah and Firmino are the joint top goal scorers in the league for Liverpool in 7, with Kai Havertz on a paltry 5 for Chelsea. When I look at those numbers, Grizz, they look very out of sync and out of kilter to where we're used to being. But just talk me through from a Reds point of view, because obviously I'm a Chelsea fan, my co-hosts are Arsenal and United fans respectively. Where has it gone wrong for Liverpool? Because I can tell you where it's gone wrong from a Chelsea point of view.
Yeah, look, from a Liverpool point of view, it's pretty clear where it's gone wrong. Not only sort of on a positional sense on a pitch, on a football pitch, but from a structural point of view. Just to put it in perspective, or just to give you my opinion on it, or I used to be I've been very proud of the way we've done it in the last 6-7 years in terms of under FSG, our ownership and Jurgen Klopp. We haven't had to go sort of and borrow huge amounts of money or strike debt on the club. And you got to remember when FSG or when Jurgen Klopp, more importantly, for more recent context, when took over, we were in a similar position that we are now. We were in 8th, just lost 6-1 to Stoke on the last day of the season. Brendan Rodgers was an absolute, became a bit of a detriment to the club. And Jurgen Klopp had a massive rebuilding job to do. And look, no one could have, in our wildest dreams, envisaged that, within 5 seasons within 2 seasons he'd had ourselves fighting for every major competition. So you got to remember, even in his first season, he got us to 2 cup finals, the League Cup, where we lost to Man City on penalties. And then Seville, who literally owned the Europa League to the I'm not sure if it was known as the UEFA Cup at the time. I think it may have been the UEFA Cup final. And so therefore, we were happy with the progress he made. And obviously in the second season, we got even better, reached the Champions League final. And then the third season, we reached the Champions League final and also win the league. But we also done it sort of very cleverly, smartly, recruitment, analytical teams, the footballing director, all singing from the same hymn sheet. And that's crucial. That's absolutely crucial. We didn't have the monies of the likes of yourself, the Man Uniteds, the Chelseas, the Man Cities that can just buy their way out of trouble. We had to be very particular and very clever with our signings. And we were. And every bit of business that we done, it was good business, and it was recognized that it was good business. My only concern over the last couple of seasons was we've started doing less and less of actual business. So every time we do business, it's good, but we're just not doing enough of it. And obviously that has shown now to be caused major issues, because as a result of the lack of investment, especially in the midfield, we're now coming to sort of a position where we need a bit of a mini rebuild. In fact, some would say more than a mini. And look, a long-winded answer. I'm sorry, but a long-winded answer to a very simple question from your side is that the lack of investment, especially in the last couple of seasons, has come home to roost now, and it's showing.
Yeah, just a few comments, because I was listening and I had to pinch myself to not jump in, because there was a lot of comments you made. Firstly, Brendan Rodgers. I remember casting my mind back thinking he was so close yet so far under his tenure, when obviously the one that got away at the end. But then after that point, Jurgen Klopp started off well, but it took time. It took time to solidify himself, his philosophies, and really unify all areas of the operation and the organization to really be on the same page. And from a Chelsea point of view, and someone that likes to consider themselves pretty stable and balanced, I remember admiring that from an outsider's perspective, to say, yes, I love the era of chaos and trophies. That's great, because you've got something to show for it, but it was unsustainable. Whereas I really admired the way in which Liverpool just really backed Klopp, and the whole club had a philosophy that they weren't going to waver away from, despite some short-term rockiness. But as you rightly said, as other teams have sort of cottoned on to that and tried to not mimic it, but try to cherry pick what they think could work for their current situation, you have the likes of Newcastle, Arsenal, who's probably a nice comparison.
Very good comparison.
All of these teams now, and obviously Man City, the juggernaut, Chelsea, the X factor, the joker in the box, Tottenham to a lesser extent. A lot of these clubs have started making more marginal improvements, whereas Liverpool have not been complacent, but they just haven't been as active as you said. So I thought that was some really good points. One, I remember speaking to some friends, non-Liverpool and Liverpool supporters, and I thought the big question at the end of last season was, what do they do about this Mo Salah situation? Obviously, Mane is a huge loss, which I didn't think got enough attention from my point of view. But the contract extension, I remember throwing out the concept of, is there a little bit of a risk now that he signed off and all of a sudden it's not downing tools, but we're not getting the same effective Mo Salah that we have seen? Or is that just by coincidence that Liverpool's drop-off has happened pretty much after that fact? I know Liverpool have had a fair few injuries. You know, Nunez, Jota, who's been an underrated contributor in my view. VVD's been picked up a recent injury. But just your reflections on Liverpool's form following the extension sign-off of Mo Salah, and of course the replacements that have been made for the huge loss of Mane.
So yeah, look, all eyes would be on that straight away because it was such a protracted contract extension. Will he sign? Won't he sign? Will Liverpool do something they haven't done, which is break their wage structure? Like compared to everyone else, you know, everyone else was paying these kind of wages for like 23-year-olds and 22-year-olds. Our wage structures, prove yourself and they will reward you. But even when we reward you, we're going to reward you. There's a limit to the reward. So look, he became the highest earner at the club, and of course, rightly so. One of the highest earners in the Premier League. Still not, I don't think the top 2 or 3 even, but for us, it was a massive deal. It's coincided with, of course, issues in the whole structure of the team, including the attack. The famous front three that we had, which struck so much fear into teams all around Europe and domestically, was no more. 5 to 6 seasons, they pretty much dominated all defenses they will come up against. And you got to remember that during the history of the Premier League, not many strike forces survive or have the same amount of success that these guys had. Normally, even the great Man United sides of the Alex Ferguson figure always revamp their attack after about 3 seasons maximum. Always a new signing in the attack to mix it up. We managed to play with pretty much the same front three for 5-6 seasons. It had to evolve. We had to make changes. Sadio Mane, an absolute icon and a legend. Sorry, legend and an icon, because he's a legend first for Liverpool. But there was a point where we have to move and change. We have to. We can't just keep them again and again and use them again and again. And it was always going to be Sadio Mane, just because of the sheer numbers and the sheer efficiency and the sheer aura about what Salah's done in the last 5-6 seasons. Broken record after record after record. Insane goal scoring from a right wing predominantly. People still say, oh, he's a striker. He's not. You go look at his heat maps. You go look at the average position. He's a right winger that just got a magnificent sense of a goal. He's played a lot of football for his club and for his country. And he went through some of the worst times mentally you can as a footballer, especially a proud Egyptian for his club, in terms of not being able to qualify the World Cup, the final of the AFCON, and then on top of that, the Liverpool pursuit of footballing immortality in terms of all 4 trophies, playing every single game possible in the league. Now, to the outside world and non-Liverpool fans, it's like, so what? But you ask anybody, an individual and a human being level, to go through what this guy has gone through in the last 12 months, it's crazy. There's going to be a drop-off. He's not Superman. He's not played well. There's absolutely no shadow of a doubt. He's not been influential enough. There's no shadow of a doubt. No Liverpool fans, no even a top red or deluded red will tell you, no, he's fine, everything's fine. But there's absolutely causations for that. They're not excuses, they're actual causations. And I've just gone through a few. And then from a club point of view, when you're playing with a certain way, a certain system, for example, Bobby and Mane and Trent and Henderson, all in their prime, we were like a machine. Now suddenly you're talking about no Bobby, no Mane. Bobby's been in and out. No Mane. Trent horribly out of form. Henderson's legs have gone. Yet the one constant is Mohamed Salah in that team, playing, still bringing the output, but not the performance. So you see what I'm saying? The output is still there, but the performance isn't there. So in a way, you got to commend him on that, because he's got a whole new strike force, a different type of strike. Suddenly he's got Nunes running around like a madman, as opposed to Bobby very calculating, dropping, making space for Mohamed Salah. Suddenly he's got Luis Diaz looking to dribble, you know, as opposed to Salah, as opposed to Sadio Mane, who used to make inverted runs. It's a whole different way of playing. As I said, suddenly he's got Henderson, who can't run anymore, literally can't run anymore, whereas Henderson was backing him up every time he would play in that cheating position. So there's a lot of reasons. I wouldn't say he's down tools. Some people have compared him to the Aubameyang situation at Arsenal. My God, you couldn't be further from the truth. This guy's the ultimate professional. You can see in his lifestyle, the way he carries himself on and off the pitch, never no drama. And I truly believe he'll come good again. Of course, will he reach those levels? Naturally, no. Those were insane, record-breaking Premier League levels. But we're hoping the likes of Diaz, Jota, Nunes, now Gakpo, the new breed, will enable him and take the pressure of him to not be the sole provider of goals and assists. So, yeah, he's going through a rough patch, but nothing like the rest of the team are going through.
Well, I think it's an interesting point, because there's a broader theme about when clubs have a negotiation process with their superstar and you try to factor in just how important they are. And while they are the elite player, they are the standout, through those different causes or connectivities, it just goes to show you that even the very best players will struggle to produce consistently without the benefit of those that around them to help them. So you can either change your formation, change the players from a chemistry output. You can have the best player, but without all of the right setup around them, they're not going to be the same as if they were under their most optimal setup. So now it was a really, really good point. Just on the new era, the new age, the Jotas, the Nuneses, obviously Gakpo's now you've touched on. Just some quick reflections on what you've made of Nunes, because he's been of a divisive character. Obviously, a lot of Reds fans have come out and have been very, naturally, you're going to defend your own, like you should. But there's a lot of more critical ones where they've said he's just not what we've expected him to be based on the hype that's come with him. But just your point of view about Nunes's impact in the life of the Premier League, and also some early indicators of what you see from Gakpo and how long it's going to take for him to acclimatise.
It's weird. It's weird asking me to speak on those two players, because I'll start off with Nunes. If anybody's unfortunate enough to follow me on any of my platforms, they'll know that I wasn't a massive fan of either. Nunes, when he was linked with us, I just didn't think he was worth the price. That was my main issue. And that's not his control, and I thought it was a very unlike Liverpool move, paying that much for an untried player, untested, unproven. But we knew he's going to be potentially good. We knew the output was only going to be increased. It's only I believe his third season playing at the very highest level. And that's quite something. For us to turn around and pay 65 million, 20 million in add-ons if you achieve certain targets. But that's a lot of money for us. And I just didn't think he was worth it. And I'll stand by it. I don't think he's technically great. And I said it from the start. And even because he's a Liverpool fan, I'm not going to suddenly change my mind. I'm not one of these guys. I'm not a flip-flopper. But I'm absolutely there to be humbled. What I did say was I can see him being effective in a Klopp system, in a Klopp team. And Klopp and Pep Linders will make him effective. And right now, bro, without Nunes, we look a shadow and a limp of a team up front. And that's how crucial it is, because of the injuries to Bobby, Jota and Diaz, who and people forget this, even outside of Liverpool fans, this is what I need to stress. Despite his price, Darwin Núñez was never going to come in as a starter. We had Diaz, Jota and Salah were going to be our starters. Núñez was always going to be slowly brought in, learn the system, learn how we press. but the whole world's pressure, or the whole Liverpool world's pressure was put on his shoulders because of the injuries. And that's significant. He's not ready yet. He's a young man still. He doesn't know a word of English when he came. And as I said, playing in a Klopp complex system, because you've got to remember, automatically people want Sadio Mane and Bobby Firmino outputs. You're not going to get that. Those guys are icons of the Premier League.
Yeah, they were so effective as well. Like you said, those numbers they're producing, naturally
You're
the
not
comparisons are unfair.
It's absolutely unfair. It also coincides with a certain Haaland robot coming in at the same time.
Yeah.
Chalk and cheese. That guy's the finished article. That guy is one of the most deadliest finishers, probably will break every record the Premier League has. This guy is raw. He's totally different. But people that are willing to look past the videos, the edited videos and the chances he misses, if you look past that, his numbers are on the verge, and I stress and I admit, on the verge of being scary. And he'll come good. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He's not everyone's cup of tea stylistically, including mine, but he's going to be effective. And in football, you need effectiveness, not just to the eye test and look pretty and technical. He's going to be effective. We've got to be patient. We've got to wait for, when I say we, the Liverpool fans, you've got to wait for the others to come back, and then we can judge him when we've got the rest of the Diaz and Jotas and the Bobbies around him.
Yeah, no, fair call. But I suppose I think that's actually a good point. Having Diaz, Jota, Bobby, to me, I look at someone like him and I think in another team, in another setup, I question just how effective he would be. But under Klopp's system, under the players he's got around him, he's been like the silent fulcrum, the unheralded hero for so long that doesn't get the praise he deserves. And when he's not there, I think when I watch, I notice there is a difference in the way that Liverpool operate. But
it wasn't a fluke. His position was carefully constructed for the purpose of Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah to do the things they've done for the last 5-6 seasons.
Absolutely.
People forget Bobby Firmino is not a striker. Bobby Firmino was brought from Hoffenheim as an 8, as a box-to-box midfielder, goal scorer, getting into the box, but really creative, pressing, linking up the play. We turned him into the false 9, the famous false 9 role. And therefore, people are looking for just goals. When you see a striker, number 9, you think goals. Bobby Firmino is one of the most cleverest players and technically gifted players you're ever likely to see. And his game is all about being a facilitator for the likes of others. And you're right. Maybe in another team, his role wouldn't be appreciated and he wouldn't be as effective. But for the system that Jurgen Klopp produced and evolved, he was absolute key. And many Liverpool fans will tell you when Bobby, if any great performance, you want to see any great performance of Liverpool in the last 5-6 years, you'll see that Bobby Firmino was pivotal of it, part of it.
Absolutely. And there's a person I want to focus our attention on now, and he's actually a focal point in your poster behind you there, Grizz. He's full of charisma. He's a tactician at heart. He brought in this rock and roll style of football. It's the one and only Jurgen Klopp. Lots of talk about him in the media, obviously coinciding with Liverpool's indifferent form, the ownership transition, the sale, all of that stuff that's floating in the backdrop. Just talk to me about what you've noticed Jurgen Klopp's demeanor this season, and particularly in recent times, and just your thoughts about what his medium to long-term future at Liverpool looks like.
Yeah, great question. I could give you a whole podcast on that, but I won't bore your listeners because I love talking about this man, so I won't bore you too much. But look, to sort of give you a very basic answer, I think he cuts a figure of acknowledgement that he has made a few errors, which is absolutely fine. There's not a coach in world football that is immune from making errors and mistakes, whether it's tactically or whether it's from a management point of view of players. I'd never thought of him as the best tactically, but for me, he's one of the greatest man managers of all time. So tactically, I don't think it's his best suit. Some may agree, some may disagree, no problem. That's fine. But as a man manager, my God, he's up there with the legends of the coaching game. But his loyalty and his devotion to his players, treating them almost like sons of his, can also be his weakness. And I think there's signs of weakness that he's been a bit too loyal to certain players in the team. And he hasn't shown himself to be as ruthless as the Fergusons, the Mourinhos, the Antonio Contes maybe as well in the past.
And he disputed that recently, didn't he, as well? When he got queried about the loyalty, he was steadfast in saying, "I don't agree with that."
But this is the defense mechanism kicking in, because he knows internally, he may have been. And I think the proof will be this summer. I think the proof will be this summer, because if he says what he is and what he's not being accused of, then he's gonna get rid of quite a few, and I believe he will. So yeah, look, there's absolutely no doubt about his future. People can talk about it. You know, every fan base is split when it comes to these things. You've got so many platforms where people can give their opinions. And look, I'm one to do what you got to do, man. I'd never try to influence others, but you're mad. You're mad if you're doubting Jurgen Klopp as a Liverpool fan. From the outside, I can imagine so many doubts about him and people trying to drive that wedge.
Of course,
Liverpool fan,
club rivalries, agendas, all of that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But if you're doubting Klopp for the job he's done the last 7 years, with the restrictions he's had, my God, I struggle to think football's for you.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'll give you my perspective, and any fellow Reds that listen to this after the fact, of course, which we'll release. But I look at someone like Jurgen Klopp, and from obviously a non-Liverpool fan's point of view, and in fact, Liverpool's been a fierce rival of ours, and I remember loving them in the early thousands. That was an awesome bit of rivalry back then. But what he's done for that club, and to think that he's not going to be there in the hot seat, considering where he's helped elevate you back to greatness, so to speak, it's a bit baffling to me. I know some will say you've got Tuchel's in the wings, you've got Pochettino's waiting in the background. All very credible managers, but to say that there's many better managers than Klopp, I'm waiting to be convinced, put it that way. So it'll definitely be a one to watch, obviously. And if, transitioning into our upcoming blockbuster clash, you get another bad result, and if you get knocked out against Brighton in the FA Cup, for example, and you lose to Real Madrid, you can see how this starts to snowball, the speculation. So me personally, I think Klopp will be there at least until the end of the season, and if not more, but it's definitely one to watch. Fast forwarding now to this big fixture, Grizz, because 9th and 10th from the ladder, it's looking pretty grim where we are. But this could be a fixture that helps propel the momentum for both of our teams. We're coming off the back of a hard-fought, gritty 1-0 win against Crystal Palace, and you guys, obviously, you had the win against Wolves. That was morale boosting, I'd say, question mark. But obviously a very character deflating, humbling 3-0 loss to a very informed Brighton. So my reflections on it just quickly, how I'm feeling. It's never a good time to play Liverpool. You guys are a difficult team to play. You could lose 10 in a row, and I would still say it's a difficult place to go to, Anfield, because of its history and the aura that surrounds it, the fan pressure, all of that, I think elevates Liverpool every time they step out on that pitch. But for Chelsea, there are some positive things that have been happening recently, despite the very indifferent and poor results. Obviously, they've been boosted by some transfer news. Mudrik's come on. Moriaki, I think we're about on the verge of signing. There is a signaling of change in terms of the way we're approaching the transfer window, and we have invested significantly with Todd Bowley and co. So I think that promotes some positivity. And of course, when you consider all of the injuries we've had, there are some now that are slowly transitioning their way back into the team. I did hear you on your Premier League Carnage show. So those who haven't had a chance, make sure you go check it out. I heard you grilling Matisse to an extent to find out about Kante's situation. I'm a huge Kante fan, as you can see in my scarf there in the background, but I think this one's a bit too soon for him, of course. but there are others on the way back, which is encouraging. So the long and short of it, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic that we go to Anfield knowing that we're versing a bit of a wounded Reds, dare I say, but at the same time, we've got our own season to start focusing on. So I'm feeling a little bit less nervous than I would normally, but just your quick reflections at a high level.
It's the weirdest feeling I've had going into a Liverpool Chelsea game in many a year. My hatred, I'll say hatred, I'll be open about it. I won't beat around the bush just because I'm on a Chelsea channel. My hatred for Chelsea runs so deep. And people will know. I was in uni days when Chelsea became relevant. And so therefore I spent my studying years, the years where you're supposed to really enjoy yourself, so stressed and tensed about these fixtures. Some of the most amazing atmospheres, rivalry, passion revolved around Liverpool Chelsea games. I mentioned on the show that there was times where I couldn't watch. I couldn't watch, bro. I used to just turn off the TV and sit in a room until the final whistle went.
They were the
And
best days, those battles.
The Liverpool semi-final, the first one, the ghost goal from Luis Garcia, I didn't watch a second of it live. I did not watch a second of it live. I booked myself a room in a hotel. Don't tell the missus. But it wasn't for anything untowards at all. It was just switch off my phone. Nobody's able to contact me. Social media wasn't rife then. So you just got to switch off your phone and there's no way of finding out what's going on until the final whistle. You fast forward that to now, and it's the most horrible situation for both clubs. We're a shambles. And I'll say that with confidence that you'll agree. Structurally, we've come to the end of a cycle, a magnificent cycle for us. And for you guys, you've come through the most successful period ever under a recent owner. So the similarities are there, but the circumstances are totally different. So you guys have got literally the millions, like $500 million nearly you've spent to get yourself out of it, and you got a new owner in, whereas we're waiting to have new owners and to see if they've got any money for the rebuild. On the pitch, that man behind you, I think he's an all-timer. I think he's a Premier League all-timer. N'Golo Kante is one of my favorite midfielders of all time. And I so hate that he plays for a team that I hate. I think he's magnificent. He's absolutely magnificent. And Kovacic alongside him. There's only two players that I feared ever for playing against Chelsea. Obviously, in recent times, Kante and Kovacic, and of days gone by, Drogba and Lampard always turn up against us. But yeah, look, this weekend's game, it's the best time to play us, guys. It's the best time to play us. I know what you mean in terms of the fear factor of Anfield and everything else, but we're a shambles right now. We have no energy throughout the team. Yes, Wolves was encouraging. Nobody expected us to turn up and beat Wolves. Everyone thought, that's them out the FA Cup as well. Well, we do things weirdly this season. Like nobody put money on us to beat Man City, and we destroyed Man City pretty much. We went away to Spurs, and everyone thought, they're going to lose to Spurs. Even a loss to Arsenal, we've given them the hardest game they've had this season, and everyone recognizes that a few dodgy decisions went their way. So we have raised it in the big games, and on paper, this is still a huge, massive encounter. But on the pitch, we're pretty much two of the easiest teams to play against right now, and that's very sad to see, from being two of the most difficult teams to play against in Europe to find ourselves right now. So I think it's a fantastic time to come and try and beat us. I'm not confident. I'm pretty sure you're not confident. And that's the way it is right now. Both of us are not confident of what
we have no right to be confident, our teams, whenever they play, to be frank with you. But you made some good points about the broader context and the circumstances. And obviously we come out of the whole sanctions debacle, and that's really put a spanner in the works, and we're still feeling the ill effects of all of that still play out now. But I think it's interesting when you look at this match specifically, considering how we've both been performing post World Cup, because obviously the World Cup acted as a significant, fork in the road. But one thing that concerns me, if I'm a Blues fan, is that after that shocking performance against Brighton, like, they were unbelievable. First, hats off to Brighton. They were fantastic. And then you guys had the encouraging, morale-boosting win against Wolves. I'm nervous as a Blues fan because I'm not expecting to see a repeat of that awful outing against Brighton. And I know it's not just an outlier performance, but the gravity of that performance was quite telling. So I'm nervous about the reaction. It's almost similar in a microcosm to what we saw against City and Tottenham this morning. Tottenham took an undeserved 2-0 lead at the break, but City weren't playing really good football. But then the response from City was rampant. So translating to that is, I'm thinking Liverpool were pretty woeful against Brighton, good against Wolves. And are we going to see the normal Liverpool against us? Because despite where we are sitting on the ladder, I dare say individually, and both Klopp and Potter, they're all going to be getting up for this match. And we all know how the bigger matches tend to bring out the best of players. So, look, I suppose I'd put a question to you, Grizz. As a Liverpool tragic, who are the current available set of Chelsea players that you would be most nervous about, and why?
So obviously, I'm trusting you guys to be telling the truth about N'Golo Kante not being available.
You can't trust us.
Exactly.
Kidding,
I know. I told him. I said, I don't trust you, Matisse. I know you. I don't trust you, and I don't trust N'Golo Kante. He's the Undertaker when it comes to us. He just rises.
He's a machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Kovacic is a machine. Talking about machines, Kovacic is a wonderful player. We've seen him perform so brilliantly in the World Cup, for Croatia. Everyone spoke about Modric, obviously, but I thought Kovacic was equally as brilliant. Look, in your current team, I'm not going to lie, Pulisic always plays well against us. I don't even know if he's going to start or if he's injured.
He won't. He won't be available. Yeah, he's injured, unfortunately.
And so, therefore, the highlight goes on to your new signing, Modric. And I've said it again openly on any platform that I've been sort of honored to go on or speak on my own, that Modric, I would have preferred Modric over Gakpo all day long, for example. I think Modric is a wonderful talent. I think, of course, you've overpaid for him, but that's nothing to do with him. He's a wonderful, wonderful player. Modric against Trent, I'm not looking forward to. But saying that, Trent's been playing much better recently. He's the only bright spark, literally the only bright spark in the whole of
He worries me, Grizz. That's my spoiler alert. He's someone, depending on the ebb and flow of the game, if you guys get a real foothold and we don't really keep you guys under control, he could be someone that unlocks us. So but
this is it. That's going to be an intriguing battle if you're able to impose Modric on him as opposed to him. Because look, he gets all the criticism in the world. We know he's not the most alert of defenders. It doesn't come naturally to him. But there's a reason for that. He's only been playing in this fullback role for 4 or 5 years. He was an attacking midfielder all his life. Schoolboy, young player coming through the ranks. He was an attacking midfielder, and now he's been having to play it as a right back in a flat back 4, not a 5. But he's one of the. He's got a rare skill of being able to direct a game from fullback. Think about that, guys, before people go mad on him. He's still young. He hasn't come close to peaking, yet he's able to control the pace of a game from fullback. Again, if Reece James is fit for you guys, an absolute brilliant player.
If he's playing, it's a whole different outlook from my perspective. But again, he's done individual training. I don't know.
He's going to be risked.
Even if he was, exactly, because he's not injury prone. I don't like using that term, especially because he's super young still, and it's not really fair to label people like that. But he has shown signs of false starts.
Yeah, and you just want to be careful with him. You just want to be careful with these guys. We're doing the similar thing with Jota and Diaz.
Yep.
They came back and they broke down again, and now they're pretty much, Jota should be back within 4 weeks. Diaz is pretty much done for the season, at least another 2 months, which is horrible. So you want to be careful with Reece James. and I hope you don't play him, of course. But look, now you might think, oh gosh, look at the state of our team where Grizz is actually struggling to name any danger. Like you've asked me who I think is a danger, but it just shows you the state of your team where nothing dangerous stands out. And that just shows you the levels of the teams that we're at the moment. You could probably say the same for us. You could probably say, normally you'd say, oh, Mane, Salah, Bobby, Virgil. None of them are in form, or whoever's fit.
Even the midfield, the battles, not as prominent is what I was thinking.
Of course, Fabinho's a shadow himself. Absolute shadow himself. So, look, we're struggling to pick out players to watch from either team, which is an indictment of the level.
I still think Salah, though, like I know we've highlighted earlier that he's not been himself, but again, like I look at Mahrez, for example, he was great against Tottenham, but he hasn't been great throughout most of the season. But against Chelsea, he found another gear. So that worries me when these classy players aren't in the spotlight, that it takes a game like this against a big rival that they go and jump to the front.
Absolutely.
Of the queue.
Sometimes it takes that a spark of a rival and the animosity.
And I hope not, of course, for Salah.
Of course, yeah. And the same for you guys. It may be sort of Raheem Sterling. I mean, I don't know his injury situation.
Or Mason Mount, for example, a guy who's under intense scrutiny. And he's similar. I draw a parallel between him and Salah, and to the extent that these players have been carrying the can or doing a lot of the work that stands out. But eventually, through a combination of fatigue, overuse, changes in circumstances, that they're not quite the same this season that they have been. So he's someone that I'll be watching with a close microscope, because his role's changed a lot under Potter, where he's been a little bit more centrally deployed and more of in the midfield, where I think he more naturally belongs, even though he can play up top because he's quite versatile. But he's someone where, so if I'm a Liverpool fan, he hasn't been in his best form. Totally 100% agree. But you know what he's done against you before. And when on the big stage, he's someone that knows how to step up. Although you do guys have the wood over us when it comes to the last couple of head-to-heads. Particularly, we lost a domestic double, 0-0 penalty shootouts.
But he's been a threat. And he's probably my favourite current Chelsea player. I think he's a fantastic talent. I think it's unfair scrutiny on him. Considering how many role changes he's had in his team, he's had to play left wing sometimes as an 8, sometimes as a false 9 behind Havertz, or sometimes thrust out on the right wing. I think he's a fantastic talent. Someone said, that if he was offered Mount, I said I'd take him with my eyes closed. If the contract situation with Chelsea doesn't sort itself out, and he's bewildered by criticism from Chelsea fans and sort of new players coming in his position or around his position, mate, if there's an opportunity for Liverpool, and I know Jurgen Klopp is a huge fan, I know that for a fact through someone, and if an opportunity came for us to prize him away, I don't think
it's so bizarre, Grizz. I follow a lot online and just general sort of commentary, and the amount of internal criticism directed at our 2-time current player of the season.
It's mad.
You would think this guy scores an own goal every game, the amount of criticism he gets.
I
understand people should be judged objectively, but it's like the judgment is so completely one-sided that any sort of good contribution just gets completely washed away.
We had
focus. Yeah,
we had the same with Gini Wijnaldum. And look at what a miss is, but people, the internal used to be just so bored with Gini Wijnaldum. Oh, he doesn't do anything spectacular. So, mate, Gini Wijnaldum was one of the most pivotal fulcrums of this Liverpool team that's coming to the end of its cycle. So, I get what you mean.
Yeah, just quickly looking to round things off, because I really want to get to the punchline of where you think the result's going to swing. But as it stands, based on what you know on who's available, who's in, who's out, who would your starting 11 be for this match? And I'll give you mine for Chelsea.
I think we've only got 2 major decisions to make. I think the back 4 will pick itself. We'll have Alisson in goal. We'll have Trent. We'll have excuse me. We'll have Gomez and Konate. Matip's horribly out of form. I can't see him coming back in the team. Virgil's out. Robertson will come in for Tsimikas. the midfield is where the drama's at, where the issues are, where the controversy is, the selection headache is. People are saying we've got a young player called Stefan Bajcetic who has been a revelation, but he's only 18 years old. People are clamoring for him to start. I can't see it.
He's a good young player. I saw him the other day. Very good.
I don't think Klopp will select him ahead of Fabinho. Fabinho's been a pale shadow of himself. It hurts me to say, but I think Fabinho will start. I think Thiago will start, and then probably the most crucial decision will be Henderson or Naby Keita. I'd go with Naby Keita. Just Henderson has been atrocious this season. An absolute legend, a leader. Another one who divides opinion very much like Mason Mount. You'd think this guy is a whatever, but he's the most successful Liverpool captain ever, and lifted every single trophy in the last 5 years. But the amount of criticism that he gets, it's silly almost. But he shouldn't be starting for us, and Naby Keita should be. So I'm expecting Naby Keita to be given the nod, and then the front three picks itself because there's the only front three we have available right now. Salah, Gakpo, and Nunes will be returning for you guys, so that will be our front three.
Very interesting. And just on the Henderson, the contribution stalwart, the comparison is very real with us with Cesar Azpilicueta. Been there, done that, won that, done everything for so long. He's the ultimate professional club man, and I'm pretty old school in my views. And I thought the guy deserves his own stand by the end of it all, once it's all said and done. But the reality is he's no longer the number one in his position, and it actually it weakens the team collectively, which hurts to say. But in terms of my 11, the way I'd look at it, because there's actually a few questions. Kepa starts because Mendy's injured. There's Thiago Silva. He obviously starts because he's the Rolls Royce for a 38-year-old gone on 25. Badiashile, he actually played very well the other day in his debut. I could see him very well starting alongside Thiago. Lewis Hall, youngster, I would pick him over Cucurella at the moment, even though Cucurella is obviously the big money boy. Lewis Hall barely put a foot wrong. And I would go Trevor Chalobah because I think he's done well against you guys in recent outings despite being on the wrong side of the ledger. Midfield-wise, it's a bit tricky. You've got Kovacic, Jorginho, Conor Gallagher, who I'm a big fan of. He's starting to come into his own. And, of course, Mason Mount. I do think he will look for a bit of experience in this match. I do expect Kovacic to start. I expect him to, as a bit of a risk, him, Jorginho, and I dare say he'll have Mason Mount together in the three. And then up top, I would like to see, because, again, injury-induced, no Sterling, no Pulisic. It'll be Havertz, I imagine. It'll be Hakim Ziyech. And to be honest, the last choice there is quite a difficult one for me. But I could see someone like Akani Chukwuemeka, who's made his full debut last match. So, yeah, it's going to be, obviously got Aubameyang there too, but I don't think he'll play two strikers unless Havertz drops deeper and Aubameyang is the bona fide up top striker, but I don't really rate him at the moment. So that's how I think we're going to line up, Grizz.
You don't think Mudryk is going to be thrown in? You don't think Mudryk's going to be thrown in?
Not as a starter. I don't know how. Yeah, Felix, he was superb despite that silly red card he gave himself. But just because it went well for one player, to throw Mudryk, mega money deal, against Liverpool at Anfield, look, I'm a bit of a risk conservatist. If Potter is a little bit more bold than I am, which would be difficult, I'd like to see it, but I'm also conscious that it might have the reverse effect, and I don't want him starting off on the wrong foot if he has a quiet game. So I do expect him to get at least 30 minutes, put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, yeah, very interesting. And final thoughts on the result and your man of the match?
Trying to predict a Liverpool game is one of the hardest things to do, and that's
same here.
Sign of the times. There was a time where I would just, Liverpool 2-0, Liverpool 1-0, Liverpool 3-0. We were just machines for so long. But hey, I'm still going to go for a win, but one of those games where you will think you deserve something, we'll think we deserve something. I'm going to go for a 2-1, and I'm going to go for a Nunes Nunes man of the match performance. He's missed the last game through injury, and he should be firing and fit. And the Anfield crowd loves him, which is the main thing. We're known to be very supportive of our players. He's missed a few chances, but my God, if you actually watch him, he causes havoc. Hence the name we've given him, Captain Chaos. And I don't think your centre backs will look forward to playing him. So I'm going to go 2-1, narrow 2-1, but not confident of 2-1.
I think we're aligned with the score, just the result. I do think Anfield does pose some threats to us, of course, and it is an energetic front three. I will give you guys that, physical, but I've just got so much raps on what Thiago Silva has done against some of the more fancied opponents, the more youthful, dynamic, faster strikers.
My favorite centre back, my favorite centre back of the last decade. Again, another one that I absolutely despised for going to Chelsea because I love him so much. I mean,
that's right. Well, he just knows to pick the best club. Of course. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So look, for me, I think he's going to have a telling role. I'm a bit torn as to I think my man of the match would be. I think because of the occasion. So 2-1 to Chelsea. But I'm going to go for Smokey. I think Mason Mount could be really pivotal here. I could see him getting an assist from a set piece or open play and may even get on the score sheet himself. So I'm going to lock in Chelsea for a 2-1, says very cautiously. But look, Grizz, this has been an awesome conversation. I could talk for hours, online, offline, whatever, and I do look forward to that opportunity next. But just for the benefit of my viewers, my friend, please tell everyone where they can find you, because the information will be in the description and all of that. But I just really want people to know where they can find your work so they can go and check you out in more detail.
So I do waffle a bit on a few platforms, but if anybody wants to hear more of my waffle, then I've just started a YouTube channel pretty much just a year ago. Check it out if you want to hear some more waffle from Grizz Khan. It's called Football Carnage, predominantly Liverpool, but not exclusively Liverpool. We've started doing more content for everyone, including begrudgingly Chelsea as well. I'm joking. I love you lot. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on, man. But yeah, check it out, Football Carnage.
It's been an absolute privilege, Grizz, and I can personally attest to checking out the Premier League Carnage show, which had a variety of different guests from different clubs, and I'm looking forward to checking it out and perhaps flying the Chelsea flag there on there one day myself. But until then, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please feel free to give the video a like, share with your friends, because we're trying to build this show from the ground up. And until then, we'll catch you next time.